They say when something's wrong, you just know. That's exactly how it felt the last time I saw Claudia. My name is Daniel Hale. I'm 43. I live just outside Columbus, Ohio, though most days, I'm nowhere near it. I work as a crisis analyst for a private cybersecurity firm, mostly infrastructure-related audits, cyber breach forensics, and foreign asset risk evaluation. I spend a lot of time overseas, and even when I'm stateside, I'm usually on call. This story started during a layover at home before I flew out to Brazil. I was sitting at the edge of our bed, staring at a family portrait on the dresser, me, Claudia, and our two kids, Mason and Ellie. It used to make me feel grounded. Lately, it made my stomach twist. Claudia had been distant for months. Calls felt more like obligations. Her tone was clipped. Conversations rarely lasted more than a few minutes, and I stopped hearing "I miss you" a long time ago. She used to text me updates about the kids, funny things they said, or pictures of them sleeping. Now it was just grocery receipts or quick reminders. Don't forget to pay Ellie's piano teacher. Last time I came home, I noticed things that didn't add up. A fancy bottle of cologne in our bathroom, one I never used. Restaurant receipts in her purse for upscale places I'd never heard her mention. I asked her about them. "They're for work dinners," she said, not even looking up from her phone. "You know how many I get dragged to." God, Daniel, not everything is some hidden message. She said it like I was paranoid. Like I wasn't trained to spot patterns in human behavior for a living. But my job had taught me something else, too. Trust your instincts. I wanted to believe her. But the gut feeling didn't go away. 2 days before my Brazil trip, I kissed the kids goodbye. Claudia walked me to the door, barely said a word. When I got in the car, I saw her text light up my phone. "I'll be at my sister's cottage this weekend. Just FYI. I should have left it alone. I almost did. But while waiting at the airport gate, I saw her sister post a selfie online, sunglasses, big smile, tagging her location. Santa Monica. That wasn't Ohio. That wasn't a cottage. And Claudia? Claudia wasn't anywhere in that picture. I stared at my screen for a long time. My mouth went dry, my heart thudding in a quiet, tight rhythm. I didn't call her. I didn't send a message. I just sat there, phone in hand, and realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. This wasn't about distance anymore. It was about deception. And if Claudia was lying to me, I needed to know how deep it went. I boarded the plane with my jaw tight and a plan forming. I was going to do what I did best. Investigate. Quietly. Completely. No one would know I was looking until I found what I needed. And I would find it. Brazil was loud, humid, and pulsing with movement, data centers, client meetings, security evaluations. But my mind wasn't there. Every minute I wasn't working, I was digging. I started with Claudia's cloud backups. Nothing invasive, not at first. We shared access to the family photo drive and our home network. I told myself it was routine, maintenance, that I was just checking if the kids' school documents were synced. But I wasn't fooling myself. I wasn't checking for homework. I was looking for anomalies. And I found them. There were location tags on photos I hadn't seen before, sunsets from a park near the west side, one that wasn't close to her work or our home. Receipts for Uber rides late at night from addresses I didn't recognize. One stood out, a ride to an upscale apartment complex just 3 miles from our house. That was when I pulled the first thread. I used some of the same custom scripts I'd built for clients, tools designed to track phishing behavior or detect suspicious file transfers. I modified one to scrape metadata across Claudia's shared devices, phone, tablet, laptop. I flagged patterns, repeated contact with a name that kept coming up, Ben Coulter. The name wasn't familiar. No family, no mutual friends. Just a sudden, quiet presence. I cross-referenced everything. Text logs from our shared family iCloud showed Claudia had added a new contact 7 months ago, right around the time she stopped answering my calls after 9 p.m. The number was listed under Ben Consultant. Consultant? That word again. I dug deeper. Public records showed a Ben Coulter had moved into a neighboring development last fall. Said he worked in remote IT support. That would have been fine, except his address appeared multiple times in Claudia's bank transaction history, DoorDash deliveries, rideshare pickups, all signed to her joint card. I shouldn't have, but I tapped into the house security system. The cameras had motion-triggered logs, synced to a remote backup. The front porch cam showed nothing. Claudia had turned off alerts for that one. But the backyard sensor? That one she forgot. I rewound a week. Then another. Found what I was looking for. Ben Coulter walking into my backyard. Twice. Once at 11:07 p.m. and again at 6:12 a.m., both on days I was logged into high-security zones and unavailable. I sat at the edge of the hotel bed, watching the footage over and over. He didn't look nervous. He looked comfortable, like he belonged. One clip even showed him tossing a ball to Mason's dog, like it was his routine. That's when it hit me. This wasn't casual. This had been going on for months. While I was chasing cybercriminals halfway across the world, someone else had made himself at home in my life. And Claudia? She either didn't know or didn't care. I looked at my reflection in the hotel mirror. My tie was still on, my shirt still buttoned, but something inside me had already come undone. If Ben Coulter thought I was just a distant husband with a laptop and a passport, he was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. Because now I wasn't just watching. I was tracking. I never expected Ben Coulter to be anyone special. At first, I assumed he was just another slick-talking opportunist, someone who saw a lonely housewife, clocked the frequent travel schedule of her husband, and made his move. But the more I pulled, the less sense it made. He didn't have a digital trail. Not a normal one, anyway. His LinkedIn was sparse. No endorsements, no prior job history beyond vague freelance tech consultant roles. No college listed. His GitHub account, likely created just to look legitimate, was dead quiet, and every photo tied to his social media had the same recycled feel, like they were planted. I'd seen this before, not in suburban Ohio, but in Eastern Europe, in Jakarta, in government contractor briefings. So I ran his name through our internal database at work. I wasn't supposed to, but I had clearance and enough justifiable domestic threat crossover authority to pull an intelligence crawl. That's when everything changed. Ben Coulter didn't exist before September of last year. The passport attached to that name was flagged by a European banking institution for suspicious identity pairing, then released without follow-up. But in a mirrored database, a declassified scrape from a breached security agency file, I found something else. His real name, Emil Kovacs. Born in Romania. No confirmed country of residence. A series of forged aliases. At least 2 known affiliations with private contractor groups tied to data exfiltration operations in Belgium and Poland. The guy wasn't just a creep. He was an asset. I paced the hotel room with my phone in hand, every new line of data hitting like a punch. The pattern was all there. Emil embedded himself into families tied to people with infrastructure access. Cyber engineers, policy advisors, crisis analysts like me. Only this time, I wasn't just a target. My wife had let him in. Maybe she thought he was just charming. Maybe she was looking for attention while I was neck-deep in projects. I didn't want to believe she was part of it. But part of me was already questioning how blind you had to be not to see it. Still, I wasn't interested in guesswork. I needed more. So I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in almost 4 years, Riley Watts. Former federal liaison for threat monitoring, now a security consultant in D.C. We'd worked a few cases together when my firm was still subcontracting with Homeland. I sent a simple message. Does the name Emil Kovacs mean anything to you? Domestic vector. She responded in under an hour. Off the record, we've had him on a quiet list. Nothing actionable. But yeah, that name's not good. I sent her the footage. The metadata. Everything I had. I didn't say it was personal. I didn't have to. 10 minutes later, she called. Dan, he's been linked to a coordinated access point leak in Munich. 2 telecom engineers compromised. Same playbook. Wife or girlfriend gets close to someone in tech. Emil moves in as the trusted +1. Whole digital footprint gets swept from inside the house. My throat tightened. Inside the house. Not just Claudia. Not just some stupid affair. This man had been around my kids. Inside our network. He'd likely touched our devices. Maybe even cloned one of the work laptops I left charging in the den. I wasn't dealing with jealousy anymore. This was a breach. And my own family had become the entry point. That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about Mason playing in the yard. Ellie watching cartoons on the tablet I once brought back from Singapore, the one I logged into using my work VPN. And Emil, no, Kovacs, walking freely through our living room, syncing their digital life with his own. The worst part? Claudia still had no idea. And whether she was naive, manipulated, or complicit, none of that mattered now. Because our home wasn't just compromised. It was wide open. I landed in Ohio 3 days early. I didn't tell Claudia. As far as she knew, I was still overseas reviewing a hydroelectric plant's server logs. That was the story I gave my boss, too. The only person who knew I was back in the country was Riley. She agreed to monitor activity on Emil's flagged aliases while I ran my own field work. I didn't go home. Instead, I rented a house 2 blocks away, short-term lease, unlisted tenant. Nice neighborhood, close enough to see our street through binoculars from the upstairs window. I set up a mobile base, 2 laptops, a Wi-Fi scrambler, external drives, and a suitcase full of surveillance tools. Not exactly government issue, but enough for what I needed. I tapped back into the smart home system, cameras, microphones, even the doorbell feed. Claudia never reset the admin password. Within hours, I was watching my own kitchen from afar, listening to conversations through the hallway mic like an outsider to my own life. That first night, I caught Emil's voice again. I'd know it anywhere by now, casual, confident, slightly too polished for someone pretending to be a remote work consultant. He was joking with Mason, asking about Daddy's cool work stuff. My heart slammed against my ribs. What the hell was he doing talking to my son about my job? The next day, Claudia opened a document on her laptop titled Custody Agreement Draft. She was planning to file. I paused the footage and stared at the screen. She hadn't mentioned anything, not even a fight, just silent maneuvering behind the scenes. And it got worse. One night, Emil came over when the kids were out. They sat close on the couch, wine glasses in hand. Claudia looked tired. Not guilty, just resigned. He leaned over and spoke into her ear. I turned up the audio feed. Once the custody stuff is sorted, I'll get your system linked to a secure mirror. We'll handle everything from there. My skin went cold. He wasn't just manipulating her emotionally, he was prepping her environment to serve as a bridge. After the custody battle, after I was out of the house, he planned to use Claudia's laptop, her cloud storage, her device permissions as his inroad. To what, exactly? I didn't know. But I knew it involved me. My work. My access. I recorded the feed, cut the clips, and packaged everything: Emil's facial matches, his past alias records, screenshots of his late-night access to the house, and the audio files. I encrypted it all and stored it on a clean drive. Then I made 2 copies. One for my firm's legal counsel, one for Riley to hand off to DHS. I wasn't just protecting my job anymore. I was protecting my children. Claudia thought she was reclaiming her life from a distant husband. She had no idea she was being groomed into a digital mule. And Emil? He thought he could slip through suburbia unnoticed. He had no clue I was watching from 2 blocks away. Every step, every whisper, every file transfer. And I wasn't going to stay hidden much longer. I waited for the right moment. It was a Saturday. The kids were playing outside, Mason tossing a football with Ellie under Claudia's half-watchful eye. Emil's car was in the driveway, his presence now casual, like he'd always belonged. I walked up the front steps with purpose, phone in one hand, backup drive in my coat pocket. Claudia opened the door, stunned. She froze like she'd seen a ghost. "You're supposed to be in Brazil," she said, eyes darting past me like someone arriving late to a lie. Flight got cut short. I stepped past her before she could stop me. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. Emil walked in from the kitchen with a smirk. "Wow, you're back early," he said, like we were old friends. Like this was his place now. I didn't respond. I pulled out the remote and tapped it, connecting the hallway speaker to the stored audio files. Emil's voice came through, crystal clear. "Once the custody stuff is sorted, I'll get your system linked to a secure mirror." Claudia's face drained. Emil stood motionless, the cockiness slipping from his expression like pain in the rain. "Is this some kind of stunt?" Claudia asked, her voice shaking more from confusion than denial. "No. This is me showing you what I've known for weeks." I turned to Emil. "Your name's not Ben. It's Emil Kovacs. You've been flagged in 2 countries. The only thing real about you is your accent, and even that you mask when it suits you." He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "Let's not waste breath. The camera in the backyard caught you here on nights I was overseas. The internal audio feed picked up your conversation with my son. You've been in this house too many times for this to be a misunderstanding." Claudia backed against the wall. "Wait, you've been spying on us?" I laughed, cold and tired. "No. I've been protecting the one thing you didn't notice was under attack." She blinked. "Our marriage. Our children." That landed like a slap. "You let a stranger into this house. A man you didn't even Google. You let him speak to Mason about my classified work. You trusted him more than me." She turned to Emil. "Tell me he's lying." Emil lifted his chin, all charm gone. This is insane. He's clearly unwell. I stepped forward. That's funny. I have a private feed from 3 nights ago where you speak fluent Hungarian to a known field contact, referring to my home network as Tier C access. Want to deny that? Emil's silence was all the confirmation I needed. Claudia turned pale, her breath shallow. I'm filing a report with Homeland. A package goes to my firm's legal counsel tonight. And if you so much as look at Mason or Ellie again, you'll be facing federal charges for exploitation and attempted infiltration. I walked to the door, then paused. Claudia, what you do now determines if you walk away as a victim or a collaborator. Think carefully. She opened her mouth, but no words came. I walked outside and called to the kids. Let's go. We're leaving. They didn't ask why. They just followed. Ellie held my hand the whole way to the car. And behind us, through the front window, Emil stood frozen, finally realizing the game was over. The divorce papers arrived 3 weeks later. I wasn't surprised. I was expecting it, honestly. What I didn't expect was the angle Claudia took, alleging surveillance abuse, emotional instability, and mental fatigue from overexposure to occupational stressors. Her lawyer framed it as a custody case based on emotional fitness, not infidelity. It was smart. They were painting me as unwell, obsessed, unstable from the strain of years in cybersecurity and too many months away from home. But smart doesn't mean true. My attorney, Janelle McCrae, had seen worse. She used to prosecute cybercrime for the state before moving into private family law. I gave her everything: videos, audio clips, device logs, Emil's multiple IDs. She didn't flinch. They're trying to discredit you before the real storm hits, she said, flipping through Claudia's filings. But they don't know we're holding lightning. We didn't use everything. That was key. Janelle only included what was legally admissible: metadata tying Emil to Claudia's home network, verified images of Emil using pseudonyms, and wire logs showing deposits to Claudia's account labeled as consulting compensation from an unregistered foreign LLC. The hearing was held in a modest courtroom downtown. Claudia wore beige. Emil didn't attend, probably advised not to appear on American soil again, given how quickly DHS had flagged his profile after our report. Her lawyer leaned hard on emotion. Mr. Hale's line of work keeps him away from his children for weeks, sometimes months. His surveillance of Mrs. Hale suggests deep paranoia. She feared for her privacy and for the mental well-being of the children. I kept a straight face while Claudia dabbed her eyes with a tissue. The performance would have been convincing if I hadn't seen her laugh over wine with a man who called my kids access points. When it was Janelle's turn, she spoke calmly, no theatrics. Your Honor, Mr. Hale has maintained a spotless security clearance with both federal and private institutions. The surveillance in question occurred on a household network Mr. Hale set up and owned jointly. What's more relevant is this. She handed the judge a folder. The man Ms. Hale has invited into her home is not who he claims to be. The judge flipped through the exhibits: Emil's alternate identities, copies of flagged financial transactions, and a side-by-side photo spread showing Emil with different names and altered appearances. Janelle continued, we have reason to believe Mr. Kovacs, alias Emil, is connected to ongoing cyber infiltration operations. This isn't about a jealous husband. This is about a high-risk environment for the children. The courtroom went quiet. The judge set the file down and looked directly at Claudia. Do you have anything to say regarding these documents? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Not even a lie. The judge nodded, then looked at me. Until further investigation is completed, I'm granting temporary full custody to Mr. Hale. Mrs. Hale will have supervised visitation, pending review by federal investigators. I didn't react outwardly, but inside, something finally loosened. Outside the courthouse, Janelle exhaled deeply. We played just enough cards. Any more, and you'd be tipping your hand to the wrong agencies. But you're safe for now. An hour later, I sat with my kids at our new rental, explaining everything as simply as I could. I didn't want them to feel fear. I wanted them to understand they weren't the ones at fault. That night, I got a message from Riley. DHS wants a full briefing package. You ready to escalate? I replied. Already building it. He walked into the wrong house. The legal fight wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted. And now, it was mine. The federal briefing took place in a closed room just outside D.C., 3 floors underground and soundproofed. Riley arranged it. I handed over everything, every file, timestamp, log trace, facial recognition hit, and packet capture. DHS called it Operation Disruption. Within days, things moved fast. Too fast for Claudia to see it coming. They tracked Emil, real name Emil Kovacs, through a bounce-back server he'd accessed while trying to spoof a login to an energy sector subcontractor in Virginia. He'd used Claudia's laptop as the entry point. The same machine our daughter had once used for virtual school now sat in an evidence locker, part of an active federal case. He was arrested in a parking garage, 1 block from a regional cybersecurity firm's satellite office. Inside his rental car, agents found a device loaded with network sniffers, data wipers, and a second passport, this one Serbian. The media didn't get wind of it, of course. Cases like these don't make the evening news. Too complex, too quiet, and too dangerous. But I was looped into the post-arrest memo. They'd been watching him for a while. I just gave them the missing piece, domestic access. Claudia was brought in for questioning 2 days later. They didn't cuff her. But they didn't exactly nod politely either. She was released under surveillance, pending charges. Her laptop and phone were seized. They discovered over $30,000 in consulting payments wired from offshore shell accounts connected to Emil's known proxies. Whether she understood what she was involved in, no one could say. Maybe she really thought it was money for helping him build a platform. Or maybe she didn't care, so long as the attention and perks kept flowing. But ignorance doesn't shield you from consequence. I filed for full custody and won. The judge reviewed the DHS affidavit and immediately restricted Claudia's visitation rights. She wasn't barred from seeing the kids permanently, not yet, but every visit would be court-supervised. No phones, no laptops, no private time. Mason didn't ask many questions. He just wanted to know if we were moving. I said yes. Ellie cried. She missed her mom, even after everything. I held her for a long time and told her the truth, in a way a child could understand, that some people lie, and sometimes those lies put us in danger, even if they start with love. In the weeks that followed, I worked with our firm's internal team to dismantle every trace of our old life. Home routers, cloud drives, kids' tablets, we wiped everything. We rebuilt digital identities, changed schools, changed doctors, changed routines. I even replaced Mason's gaming system with an offline setup. He hated it at first, but when I showed him how to build a private LAN server for local multiplayer, his eyes lit up. Small victories. 1 month after Emil's arrest, I was called into a private meeting with the director of my firm's domestic security initiatives. "We want you heading up a new project," he said, "focused on homegrown digital infiltration, family vector entry points, social engineering, long cons." I asked what the program was called. He tapped a folder across the table to me. "Project Sentinel." I nodded. It felt right. I wasn't just a crisis analyst anymore. I was the firewall. And this time, the breach wouldn't come through my door unnoticed. 2 years later, we live in a different town, small, quiet, a couple hours southeast of Columbus. No one here knows my name beyond what I've given them. Daniel Reed. I got the alias cleared through DHS during the final stages of Claudia's case. We needed clean IDs, a fresh digital trail, and no connections to Kovacs. The kids adjusted quicker than I thought they would. Mason's in middle school now, plays baseball, and has an eye for robotics. Ellie's thriving too shy, but sharp. A few weeks ago, she asked me to show her how passwords work. Real ones, not the ones on YouTube tutorials. That led to a weekend project of building a miniature encryption game. She took to it immediately. I still get monthly reports from my contacts. Claudia pled guilty. Lesser charge, but the plea deal came with restrictions: 2 years of house arrest, 5 years suspended sentence, mandatory cybersecurity education classes, and no unsupervised contact with minors. The court didn't mince words. She had failed to protect her household from malicious foreign influence. I didn't attend sentencing. There was nothing left to say. We've rebuilt our lives carefully, methodically. Every device we use runs through encrypted tunnels. The kids' tablets are walled off in sandboxed environments. I teach them not just how to use the internet, but how to understand it. Trust isn't something we assume in this house. It's something we validate. Our neighbors think I work in tech consulting, which isn't a lie. My official title now is Advisor for Domestic Cybersecurity Engagement, under a joint task force with 3-letter agencies I can't name. I spend my days helping schools, local governments, and families spot the early signs of infiltration attempts, digital grooming, fake identities, backdoor access through personal relationships. The irony isn't lost on me. The thing that almost destroyed my family became my new mission. Last week, I was out in the backyard while Ellie rode her bike. Mason was inside, building something with a Raspberry Pi kit. The sun was dipping behind the trees when my secure terminal pinged a new message. Encrypted sender. European origin. Subject, trade. I opened it on the secondary system. I have names. 2 active assets embedded inside U.S. infrastructure circles. I'll give them to you. All I want is contact with Claudia. Just a call. Just one. EK. Emil. Even in detainment, he was reaching. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed a response through the official back channel. No deal. The family is no longer your battlefield. I closed the terminal and shut down the line. Inside the house, the lights were on. Ellie waved from the window. Mason looked up from his desk and gave me a small nod. We were safe. Not because of a firewall or a court ruling, but because I'd stopped waiting to be protected and decided to protect us myself. This wasn't the life I imagined. It was better. It was ours.